So the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6 was recently announced, and if you saw my previous video, then you know that I said the improvements to the generation were pretty minor and probably not worth the upgrade. So now that I've had a chance to use this device over a few days, set it up, and use it as my new daily driver coming from the Fold 4, I have some additional thoughts and I wanted to share some initial issues that some people were having with this device as well. Before we get into it, I just want to say I bought this phone with my own money, so I'm trying to stay as unbiased as possible in this video. As a small tech reviewer, it's really hard to constantly keep up with the latest and greatest. So I just want to take a moment to thank you guys for watching and subscribing. And if you want to support me, I have affiliate links in the description as well as my Lightroom preset system. Every cent I make from these videos go right back into the channel so I can keep producing more content, and I always try to answer questions in the comments as well. With all that being said, let's get right into the video. The Galaxy Z Fold 6 definitely has a refreshed look with an extremely boxy design. Personally, I think this is one of the best looking phones that Samsung has made. I have the crafted black colorway, which is a Samsung online exclusive, and the matte black rails with the hinge paired with the industrial design makes this a really cool looking device. Especially when you put it next to some of the older phones like the Z Fold 4, the shiny edges, soft corners, and bloated design definitely looks dated. The back of this crafted black version has this carbon fiber looking design, which is new. In camera, it looks extremely glossy, but when you're holding the phone, there's actually a slight rubbery texture to it, which makes the phone a lot more grippy. Personally, I think it looks a bit cheap, kind of like a skin or a case on your device. So it's definitely subjective. While we're on the back, the camera rings also have been updated with these large bezels that make the cameras look bigger than they actually are. The larger camera bump also makes this phone extremely wobbly when used on a table, even when it's open. So this change in adding these unnecessarily large camera rings caused more problems than they solve. And it's really a useless feature because these cameras aren't even upgraded. It's pretty much the same exact cameras that they've been using for over 3 generations now. But I am hoping that this change in camera housing means that there could be upgraded cameras coming down the line, maybe in the rumored Fold Ultra or the next generation Fold 7. Regardless, this phone definitely needs an updated set of cameras, but we'll get more into that later. Although the build quality is overall really good, some people are reporting issues with a loose power button, and I have the same problem on my unit. It's hard to capture on camera, but this is what it sounds like. It rattles when you shake it, and even when you're shifting the phone around in your hands, like when you're trying to open or close it. So far, it doesn't seem to affect the functionality, and as minor as it sounds, it just makes this phone feel extremely cheap for a $2,000 device. The hinge is another area where there are both improvements and some new issues. The new hinge is a lot lower profile than the previous generations, and the Fold 6 is now IP48 rated. However, the 4 in the IP48 rating does not mean dust resistance. According to Samsung, the 4 just means that it's resistant to solid particles over 1 millimeter in size. So dust and sand are much smaller than 1 millimeters and can still cause issues getting into the hinge. Some people are also reporting that the hinge is not even when the phone is folded or open. On the Z Fold 5, Samsung stated that the hinge was designed to be uneven, so it's assumed that the same style hinge is used on the 6 and a little bit of unevenness should be okay. However, with this unevenness also comes another issue where people are reporting that their new Fold 6s are not opening completely flat. And like I said earlier, because of the larger camera bump, the phone doesn't sit completely flat on a table anyway, so it's kind of hard to tell. But I think my unit doesn't open completely flat. The hinge is definitely one of the more fragile areas on a folding phone, so I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye out to see if there are any more issues reported on this. The dimensions of this device has slightly changed from the previous generations, and the cover screen has slightly increased in width. Although the increase was minimal, when you're actually using the device, it does feel like a significant enough change. I put a Fold 4 screen protector over the Fold 6, and you can see how much more screen there is on either side. Again, it is minor, but when you're holding it and typing on it, you do notice that difference. On the other hand, it's nowhere near as wide as the OnePlus Open or Pixel Fold, so if you thought the previous generation Folds were way too narrow, then the Fold 6 is probably going to be too narrow for you as well. However, I think the current size hits that sweet spot because I love compact devices and the dimensions of this phone really makes it great for one-handed use. The slightly increased width on the cover screen also means that you get a slightly larger view when you're using the device in flex mode. Again, it's still a minor change, but definitely a move in the right direction. This year, the max brightness on both screens have also been increased. However, it really isn't that noticeable. But due to that extremely reflective inner screen, any increase in brightness definitely helps with outdoor visibility. But what is more noticeable is the under-display camera in the Z Fold 6. Especially when you put it side by side to an older phone like the Fold 4, the under-display camera in the Z Fold 6 has a darker ring around the edge, and it may be more noticeable depending on the angle and what is being displayed. It's one of those things where some people may not notice it at all, or others find it extremely distracting. It was one of the first things I noticed on my unit, and I thought it was a defect. But when I looked it up online, it seems that everyone else has been reporting the same issue, so it might just be normal for this generation. Thankfully, if you use the phone in dark mode, which I do most of the time, then it becomes a non-issue. Another thing I noticed is that the screens look more washed out compared to the Fold 4. The colors are a bit duller even if you use it in vivid mode. But honestly, I don't mind it because I think it looks more realistic. And Samsung as a whole is moving away from those more saturated colors because I noticed the same thing in the S24 Ultra. Lastly, the crease on the inside does seem to be reduced, but since this device is still new, we will have to see how it worsens over time. With my Fold 4, I even noticed the shape of the crease and the bumpiness changing over time, so it's definitely something to keep an eye out for. Finally, onto the single worst part of this phone, and it's the cameras. As much as I would love to wholeheartedly recommend this phone, I just can't because of how bad these cameras are. Unless you don't care about image quality whatsoever, but even then, I still hesitate to recommend it if this is your only device. The main sensor is able to take half decent photos even in low light, but you can tell there is a lot of processing going on as some photos will look too oversharpened or oversaturated. And in typical Samsung fashion, it tends to overexpose, resulting in really bright photos that don't look too great to me. The ultra-wide is still nothing special and it doesn't even have autofocus. You can tell there's quite a bit of distortion and the corners look soft. The 3x telephoto lens is also not too great and it degrades quickly once you zoom past 5x. These are just some initial impressions, but because they're the same set of cameras for many generations now, I don't really expect them to improve all that much. However, I will be doing a full photographer's review of this device, so definitely subscribe so you don't miss that video when it comes out. Overall, the cameras are still good for very basic tasks, but if you're trying to capture those very special moments, maybe don't go for this device. And honestly, there really is no excuse on putting these old cameras for a $2,000 phone. Battery life is another area where I can definitely see some improvements. Although it has the same 4400 mAh battery as the previous generation, the processor is more efficient. So I've been getting around 5 to 6 hours of screen on time, which is pretty good. And as far as other issues go, there are definitely still some software bugs that need to be worked out. For example, when I use Google Maps, most of the time there's a glitch where I can't click on any of the buttons on the bottom of the screen. I thought it was an issue with the screen itself, but after restarting the app, everything seems to work okay. Another issue with my unit is that there are two very small divots on the inside screen. I'm hoping it's an issue with just the screen protector and not the screen itself, but it's hard to say without actually removing the screen protector to take a look. Again, it's a minor issue, but I'm just hoping that it doesn't lead to dead pixels later on. And for a brand new device, I feel like it shouldn't really have this issue at all. On a positive note, the new screen protector that they used on the inner display feels a lot harder than the previous generations. It feels less like plastic and closer to glass. I'm hoping this will lead to better durability in the long run as well. Lastly, the vibration motor has also been improved. It's not as good as the S24 Ultra, but it's definitely much better than before. To sum up this initial review, the Galaxy Z Fold 6 is definitely one of the most refined foldables on the market. But that doesn't mean that it's perfect, and there are still a significant number of improvements to be made. If you have a device to trade in and can take advantage of some of those trade-in deals that Samsung is running right now, then it might be worth it to upgrade. Otherwise, I would definitely wait for a sale because paying full price for this phone doesn't feel worth it given the level of camera that it has. And also there are a ton of those AI features, and I've only played around with a few of them, but none of them really seem to be that helpful in day-to-day life. But if you're someone who uses AI a lot, definitely drop your tips in the comments because I would love to try them out. And as usual, let me know if you have any questions and I'll try to answer them. I have both the Z Fold 4, the latest Z Fold 6, as well as the S24 Ultra. So if you have any questions or want to see any comparisons between the devices, let me know and I'll try to make an updated video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.